Hey so fairies, if you want to learn how I made this two-piece, definitely keep watching. See you in my tutorial.
Single day, I'm gonna make something great. That's my
Hello and welcome to my channel. So for this tutorial we'll be needing the following measurements. We'll be needing our bust measurement divided by 4, our waist measurement, our upper hip, that is where the shirt will be stopping, and we're going to be dividing these by 4, and then we're going to be adding 2 inches to these measurements. That's I've already done that, and those are the figures that I have. So for the length, I'll be adding 1 inch to the length, which is 26 inches. So half inch would be to hold it out on my shoulder, and then the other one would be to hem it. So if you need to make this longer, it's totally up to you. So I've already gone ahead to fold my fabric. You can see this part is on fold, and then for you to know what to use, you're going to use the biggest circumference you have there, which for me is was actually 14 inches. So when I checked, I found out that I still needed to fold more. So I did this and I arranged it properly, so I'll make sure I have what I need. So because this fabric really moved, this is one of the most challenging fabrics I've ever had to work with. So I used my pins a lot. So you may want to do this if you're working with a fabric that moved as much as mine. So the first thing I'll be doing is to measure what I would need, because I wouldn't want to be working with the entire fabric. So let me cut off what I need. So for this length, I'll be cutting 26 inches like I said earlier, and then I'll be working with whatever I have, and I'll show you how to get these things done. So this now becomes my working piece, so it's easier for me to do whatever I need. So the first measurement there is my waist to bust measurement, and for my client is 13.5 inches. So I added half inch to this for the shoulder, and then this is the waist to shoulder to waist. Like I said, I added half inch to all my vertical measurements because I need to hold half on the shoulder. So marking 2 inches above the bust line would be the chest line. So I usually use 2 inches for plus size, and then for regular size 2.5 inches. So just measuring it to make sure I have what I need, and then I marked 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and I had 10.5 inches. So I decided to make it 10 inches after I felt it was a bit much. So please do well to do whatever you feel is good enough for your client. This client usually likes everything to fit very well. So for the back, I measured 1.5 inches. Like I said, I added one half inch to all my vertical measurements. So I did 3 inches by 1.5 inch at this point. So from that 3-inch point, I connected it to the 1-inch shoulder drop that I did earlier. So remember, there's a line there. So there's 1-inch shoulder drop, and from there I measured and I saw 10 inches as the chest line. So that's the one I'll be working with, guys. Please pardon this. It was really hard for the chalk to show on this, but I tried my best to make sure that at least you follow properly. So this is me extending that shoulder line all the way to my chest line, and then at this point I marked the bust measurement, and then I connected this all the way. So this is essentially a basic bodice, but I'm doing it directly on fabric. I added 1 inch to all my horizontal measurements for my sewing allowance. This shirt, my client didn't want it to be fitted at all. So if you want yours to be a bit fitted, you can add just 1 inch to as ease, but I added 2 inches. So I connected from the bust to the waist and also from the waist to the upper hip. And then on this level, I went up by 1 inch to form that pretty curve right there, so that the sides will not be sharp. And then for the back dart, I did the bust measurement, bust point to bust point measurement. I'm not going to be marking it because it won't show, but I'm going to definitely add a dart to this. Please note that I did not add any dart allowance to the back. I just decided not to do this because I had enough ease already. So I didn't add the dart allowance to my waist measurement. So going over to the front, you want to make sure that you have more than what you have for the back for the front, because the front is going to be having a button extension. So you want to make sure you fold enough that will accommodate this. Remember, this fabric was really moving, guys. It was not even funny to work with at all. So just take your time and make sure you have it right. So this is it. I've gotten what I need for this. So I'm just quickly going to measure and make sure I have 2 inches at this point. And I kept dragging the fabric to make sure I had exactly what I needed. And then, of course, went in with my pins to steady it. So the next thing is to cut this using the back, just to cut the sides and the armhole. I'm going to trim it out later. So I like to have my working piece first, and of course I can now alter it the way I want. So I'm going to be cutting out the armhole, trimming it in a bit for the front. So I raised my back and I trimmed out the front. I just eyeballed this, guys, but it shouldn't be more than 3/4 of an inch for this. And then for the front, I went down by 3 inches, and then I made a curve and connected it with the shoulder line. I also went in with my scissors and cut the front open. Going in with my scissors, I trimmed out about 3/4 of an inch from the front. Remember, I did this because the back, I am going to take that from the back, 1 inch that, and I didn't add the allowance, so I took it off the front as well, just for this for the front not to be too big. So this is freehand, guys, so I eyeballed most of the things that I did, but if you follow this step, it's going to work for you. So these are the measurements that I'm working with for the skirt. I already folded my fabric, and for the length that I'm working with, I'm going to be removing my band height of 2 inches. So essentially all my vertical measurements, waist to hip, waist to length, I'll be removing 2 inches from all these measurements. Do well to do yours like that too. So the skirt length I'm working with, of course, is 35. By the time I remove 2 inches is 33, and so on. So my front hip is definitely smaller than my back hip. My front hip is hip divided by 4 minus 3/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to be adding 2 inches to this, and then it will be 13.75. Then for my back hip, I'm going to be doing the hip divided by 4, and that 3/4 I took from the front, I'm going to be adding it to the back, and plus the 2 inches, and it's going to give me 15.25. So guys, if you've not watched the video of how I usually draft my skirts, you may want to pause this, go back, so that you can understand all the mathematics behind the 0.75 and so on. So for you to know what to cut, remember this is the entire measurement that we'll be needing, because we already added the seam allowance to this, which was 13.75. So you want to make sure you have enough. In fact, for this fabric I put more than enough, so that by the time it moves and all that, I will still have what I need. So you have to take your time and make sure you do this properly. So I'm going to be attaching a band to this, so I need 1/2 inch on the upper part of this. So all my vertical measurements, I'm going to be adding 1/2 inch to them. Normally my waist to hip minus my band height is 8 inches, but I did it 8.5 right here because I need 1/2 inch to attach my band. So same with the length and of this skirt as well. So for the hip, I'll be putting the hip measurement at this point. You do remember that we already used up all, we did the calculation and we folded according to it. So for the waist, I put the waist measurement there plus the 2 inches of allowance, and I just connected this to the hip line. Remember, we used the hip measurement to fold this, so what we have exactly is our hip measurement. And for the length, I'm going to find first of all the waist to knee measurement, which for her was 23 inches, and at this point I reduced 1/2 inch on the knee level. If it's not a plus size that you're working with, don't do this, do 1.5. So I marked the same thing on the length, the hem, and I connected this with a straight line all the way down, and I'll be connecting from the hip to that knee line as well. Remember I said if it's not a plus size, you can do 1.5 inches. So we're done with the front, and we're going to move over to the back. So for the back, you're still going to fold this into 2. Remember, our back is bigger than our front, so make sure that the fold that you have will be bigger than what you have for the front. So remember the calculation we did earlier for the back. We'll be needing 15.25 for the back. And remember, we did not add any zipper allowance to this, so you may want to add your zipper allowance of 1.5 to this to know exactly what width of fabric that you'll be needing for the entire skirt. So placing the front on this, just make sure you align this properly. This will enable you cut out the back as well, the length for the back as well, and then we're going to work on the back separately. So all I need from the front right at this moment is to determine the length of the back using the front pattern. So for the back, we'll be doing essentially what we did for the front, 8.5 inches for the where the band will start to the hip area, and then of course we're marking our knee measurements here, and we already have the length using the front to do this. So I'm going to show you what else to do with this, guys. Dividing my hip measurements by 4, and then adding 3/4 inch to this. You mark out your hip measurements on that line, and for the knee measurements, you mark what you had on your hip measurement at this point, and then you're going to be removing 1 inch from it, and then whatever you have is what you will also be marking on the length of this skirt. So moving over to the folded edge, I'm still going to be measuring the waist to hip that I marked on the other side, just for me to have a straight line. And then I'm going to be measuring my entire hip, and that is what I'll also be placing on the waistline as well, just to get a straight line all the way from the waist to that hip line. So from this point right here, I'll be marking 1.5 inches away from that line that I made earlier, and I'll be connecting this all the way to the hip line. And from that 1.5 inches, I'll be measuring the waist measurement I'm working with. And then at this point, if you want to add your dart, you're free to add, but I'm not going to be adding darts to this. So it's the waist plus 2 inches, and then I connected this all the way to the waistline as well. Remember, I already did all these calculations earlier, and I added 2 inches to all my horizontal measurements. You may want to do this before you start. So for the knee, I also marked the knee line there so that I can contour the back. So I marked 1 inch inwards, and I'll be connecting this all the way to the hip line using this ruler. I'll also be marking same on the hemline. So the next step is to add zipper allowance to this back part. So I'll be using 1.5 inches for zipper allowance, and this is what I'll be marking all the way from the waistline to the hemline. So guys, if you're here and you've not subscribed to my channel, kindly press the subscribe button. Also press the notification button so that you will be notified whenever I upload new videos. Kindly follow me on my social media handles, and I can't wait to see you do yours. So this is how it looks on my client, and she absolutely loved it. I ended up adding drawstrings to this. Let me know if this is a tutorial you would want to watch. Love you for watching. Bye.